Collaboration! Wait, what? Um, well, hi everyone. I'm Apostolos Koutropoulos, also known as AK. I am a student in the Athabasca University EDDE program, cohort 7. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and this right here is going to be a brief presentation for what I'm aiming to do for my dissertation. So the working title of this presentation is Open Course Collaboration, a case study of emergent collaboration in RISO 14 and RISO 15. What I'm going to be working on in this presentation is going to be a little background. Where did this topic come from? What the problem is, the methodology that I'm currently pursuing, literature review, points of interest as I'm working on this, and a potential roadmap for getting this thing done. So the background, where did this topic come from? Well, let me start a little bit with a prehistory. Back in 2011, there was this MOOC called MobiMOOC for mobile learning, where EDDE Award put together a MOOC on the topic of M-learning, brought together people to both learn from one another and to learn from experts in the mobile learning arena. And a few of us got together, seemingly serendipitously, to work on a paper on MobiMOOC. And the topic, eventually, after we had worked on a few papers together, came up from a colleague, Rebecca Hogue, who asked, well, why do we collaborate? It was a good question, but at that time we didn't really pursue it to completion. Well, fast forward to 2014. A few years later, Dave Cormier puts together Rhizomatic Learning, affectionately known as RISO 14, which it was the course hashtag. We started off on P2PU, we migrated to Facebook. A few people got together, we started working on conference presentations, on papers to publish, and this element of collaboration came up again. Well, next year, we came back to RISO 15, this time we started straight on Facebook, we learned in RISO, and we actually continued to collaborate, and some new people got into the collaboration. So what happened? Briefly, as I said, we came to these classes, we learned, we interacted with one another, student-student interaction, student content interaction, and we formed these voluntary groups to do research. And this was totally not in the syllabus. We did it anyway, we had a lot of fun. And as the Little for Dummies guy says, this was not unprecedented if you look at what we did in MobiMOOC 2011. So as part of this collaboration, two common things were research papers, which were papers for peer-reviewed publications, conference presentations, guest blogs. Some of the collaborators from those groups put together some guest blogs for outlets such as Prof Hacker, and potentially a spin-off came across, Virtually Connecting, which is a virtually connecting community. I'm not going to talk a ton about them because my research really focuses on the top 3 bullets. So what's the problem? Not really a problem, this is more of a phenomenon. Why? Why is my big question. Why do people who maybe don't know each other agree to do group work, especially when in class we all kind of say, group work, why? Why? Can I just do this on my own? So the question is, why do people come together to connect? Why do people participate in these joint projects? Why do they endure to the completion of the project and don't just give up? And then for some people, why do they return for more, even with either with the same group of people or with different groups of people? So the research questions that I've formulated here go toward intentionality and to the limits of this type of research. And I'd like to thank my classmate, cohort mate, Matthew Bingley, for helping me distill these a little bit. So intentionality is what are the motivations for creating or joining a group that collaborates? So what were some of the initial motivations? Did members join intentionally, or did they just fall into this collaboration? What did the members hope to gain from such collaborations? And also, looking at things as participant backgrounds or certain tendencies. Are there some tendencies that people have that predispose them to collaborating rather than not collaborating? There's also the limits of collaboration. Our MobiMOOC 2011 group dispersed after a few papers. We all went our separate directions. Some of us kept in contact and reformed other groups, but that core group broke apart. And I saw some of the same things in the riser groups as well. There's this constant formation and reformation of groups. So how long do these collaborative relationships last? What are some of the limits of collaboration and how might they be overcome? Should we overcome them? Do collaborations persist, and what are some of the reasons for and against that persistence? And if collaborations have limits, do they continue on in some form in perpetuity in this type of remixing that has been witnessed? In terms of methodology, the question is, how do you research this thing? It's going to be a qualitative methodology, but I'm kind of looking at this from a methodological omnivore's perspective. There is no one method that really encompasses how I'm conceiving of this research topic, except for one, which is the omnivore of the research methods, and that is the case study. So I thought that I would use an emergent case study design, looking at qualitative or a sequential mixed methods, where any of the qualitative elements are at the beginning, and then beyond that, it's qualitative to explain any of the quantitative. And it's emergent because I really want to get the people who are part of this in on the action. I don't want to speak for them. I do want to have this research be my own, but at the same time have their valuable contributions expanded upon. They were part of collaborative groups, and I see that this is an opportunity for them to have a little say in how this type of research that's researching them gets rolled out. Data collection-wise, questionnaire at the beginning to kick this off. Interviews that are one-on-one to get more in-depth with each individual participant. Potentially document collection. The individuals who participated in these collaborative groups either have blogs of their own or have contributed to other people's blogs and on Twitter about their experiences in collaborating, and that would be an interesting lens through which to look at our joint collaborations. Journaling on my part, and focus groups depending on the variety of factors. Focus groups at this point look not as promising, but I want to consider them if the climate is appropriate. So who are these participants? These are individuals who enrolled in RISO 14 and or RISO 15. These are people who collaborated in extracurricular research projects that was either published in an academic journal, published in a non-peer-reviewed venue like something like Prof Hacker, or something that was presented at a conference. And these are groups of 2 or more people. And it's important here to note that I'm not saying that the MOOC made them do it. These individuals found each other through the MOOC, and the MOOC is a good delimiting factor. It is the place where people met. Potential location of participants. These are the potential locations of some of the collaborators in RISO 14 and 15. There's a lot of North American influence, but I'm hoping that we get to see some diversity from non-North American perspectives. In terms of analysis, there's an analysis of survey, of the surveys, which is going to be either qualitative, or if there are quantitative components, there's going to be quantitative analysis with that as well. There's going to be a thematic analysis of transcripts from the interviews. At this point, I'm aiming for 2 rounds of interviews past the survey. This would give me 3 levels of data. And then there's the document analysis from blogs and industry publications where people are reflecting on their experiences as participants. Validity aspects, I am aiming to have multiple coders for transcripts. I don't have the logistics yet, but I'm thinking about it. Member checking is a big element for me. I want to make sure that transcripts from our interviews are correct, textually anyway. B, that my understanding of what's been said is correct and it's relayed accurately through my own writing. And since a lot of people collaborated in these joint academic collaborations, and I was one of them, maybe providing me with a devil's advocate, especially when reading other people's information. Everything is going to be anonymized, so people are not going to know who said what, but there is going to be that element of devil's advocate that I'm going to take into account. And that is the peer review aspect of it. And then triangulation through the analysis of the blogs, of the transcripts, of the surveys. Some limitations, it's a small sample size. By my count, there only may be about 15 individuals between both MOOCs that worked on collaborative academic projects. It's okay in my book. It's a case study. I'm aiming for thick descriptions. I'm not aiming for generalizability. Hence, it's not generalizable. But I'm hoping that the results of this research will be useful to small classes, especially at the graduate level. And group does not appear to be the norm of MOOC participants. Most of the people who participated in these MOOCs don't tend to seek out other individuals to do these types of joint collaborations, so I guess you could call us deviants in that sense. But it's interesting to know what makes us deviants and why we do collaborate, so possibly that can be harnessed in the future. The literature review, have other people done this? I don't think so, but maybe. Who knows? There are 2 challenges that I have. One is where to begin. The obvious is to start with classroom research and research that's been done in the classroom on collaboration, but I'm a little skeptical about that. MOOCs are not traditional classes, and recent research on MOOCs tends to say that, even though we tended to treat MOOCs as classes in terms of how we think about them in terms of attrition and things like that. Then there are multiple lenses. When I started to think about this, I was thinking, okay, what are the motivations of people doing this? Do personal learning networks have a factor in this? Is there an open ethos of the participant side that predisposes them to collaborate with people rather than kind of, not share what they have? Elements of leadership within groups, network learning. So there are different lenses that you can look through this. So in 805, the last seminar that I did, this is what I thought about, how things might tie together in my lit review. Elements of motivation, leadership, personal learning networks, organizational theory, actor network theory. And it was just at the end of the Olympics, and hence you see here the diagram of the Olympic symbol. As I was working on it, I reconceptualized my graphic, putting motivation as the bedrock, then learning, environment, and community kind of side by side, and then that subdividing into different elements. That didn't really satisfy my curiosity, so I started thinking that diagrams really have a finite utility in describing how things interconnect. So I'm done with diagrams for now, and I'm doing a literature review reset. Having spoken to my advisor, I am resetting and focusing on three elements in my literature review. MOOCs, especially in the last couple of years that I haven't fully kept up with. And with MOOCs, it's all about, excuse me, um, uh, who comes to these MOOCs, potential demographics, are there any characteristics of learners in MOOCs that might be more or less conducive to such collaborations, and looking at things beyond the traditional, course completion rate that research has focused on these past few years. Another area is collaboration, and this is more general collaboration. What are the characteristics of successful collaborative relationships? Why do the relationships persist? Things of that nature. And then looking at instances of collaboration in the traditional classroom, at work, and in instances of professional development, because we can reasonably argue that those of us who are participating in MOOCs are doing it for professional development purposes. So here are some points of interest, or something to keep in mind as I go through. I'm pondering how relevant research into traditional classrooms is, and how deep to go into it. As you can see, this is my third aspect here. It's collaboration instances in the classroom. How deep should I go? That's something that I'm keeping in mind, because while I can look into things like computer-supported collaborative research, I don't want to go too deep into a rabbit hole that's ultimately not going to be very useful for me. I'm looking into network learning and social network analysis. One of the analyses that I'm interested in pursuing is looking at a social network analysis of how participants were prior to their collaborations, prior to being part of that MOOC, and what they are now, and seeing if there is a network of researchers that was kind of the undercurrent there, and it just wasn't visible because we didn't know about it, or if there were no ties or weak ties prior, but now there are ties. And then I'm questioning what a product is. I've defined a product as an academic paper, a non-peer-reviewed blog, or a academic conference presentation. There is this other thing called virtually connecting. It's become rather successful over these last couple of years, and I'm a member of it as well. And there has been talk that it might be considered an offshoot of the Rhizo collaborations that we've had. So I'm thinking, at the moment, that's not part of my sort of collaboration sphere, but I'm wondering if I should include it. Some things that I really want to go more deeper in, go into Lincoln and Guba's writing, go to the originals, look more into things like member checking and credibility, Gertz with thick descriptions, and Denzin on triangulation. All these things are things that I've read in methods books, but I haven't actually read the originals, so that might be something that I need to focus more on. In terms of a roadmap, how do I get there, and how long will this dissertation thing last? I'm aiming for May 2019 as a dissertation defense proposal. So this spring, going back through feedback, expanding of my lit review section, and resetting that, refine and elaborate on the research methods, and this goes into August. In the fall, get some advisor feedback, get some feedback from peers on the webs, refine, 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 hopefully defend by December of 2017. And then if that's approved with REB and my committee, start my data collection in the spring, do some analysis, go back into data collection, do some more analysis, go back into data selection, as I write here, rinse and repeat. And then once I have that in the spring, which will go all the way to August, so from January, February to August, in the fall semester, do some member checking, do some analysis, get some feedback from the committee, get some public comment on what I've written, and then refine up until my date of defense. More immediately for this spring, is to go through this lovely pile of articles and then get some more, discover and reread some related research on traditional classroom collaboration, work-related collaboration, professional development collaboration. I've got 2 books on case studies, one by Yin and one by Stake. I've got a book on internet inquiry. Cresswell's book is a classic that I need to go back to, and I want to review the ethics recommendations of the Association of Internet Researchers because I will be using a lot of web resources that are open and free, but at the same time they weren't really intended as research material such as participants' blogs. I'm aiming to be ruthlessly pragmatic here, which is why I don't want to go down any unnecessary rabbit holes. And that's basically it. Thank you for listening, and if you have time, you can find me right there on Twitter and also on my blog. Have a good day.